Here comes the weekend with Andrea Hayes on Dublin's new Sunshine 106.8.
Hello there, how are you? I hope you're well this festive Friday. Gosh, we're getting festive, aren't we? It's great to be back in the studio. As I was saying to Joe earlier on, I've been out in the freezing cold all week. We've just started to shoot the new series of Animal A&E. Boy, can I tell you how happy I am to be here in this warm studio and have a wonderful show for you tonight. We are keeping the festivities going because we're talking about festive fashion and all of the beauty bits that you want to have ready for your Christmas party. That's after 7. Our model mum, Alison Canavan, will be with us after 7 as well. And we're actually looking at really affordable presents for children, which is always good around this time of year. I'll be talking to a wonderful talent. His name is Alan Kavanagh. He'll be singing me his Christmas song. It's called Christmas Far From Home. So we'll have a little festive tune just after 7 as well. Now, if you're getting married, our wedding slot is coming up. So we'll be talking about brides and ceremonies. That's all on the way, plus travel as well. So it really is an absolutely jam-packed show, so I'm very happy to be here. But we're starting with something very, very interesting. Most of us know Michael Jackson as a worldwide icon, a very gifted dancer, a musical genius. He's kind of, the king of pop. But my guest that's in studio with me tonight not only knew him as a client, but as a personal friend. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Dr. Patrick Treacy into the studio. Dr. Patrick Treacy, you had an opportunity to get to know, I suppose, the man behind the notoriety, the title, and get a glimpse into the human side of Michael Jackson, a man that we all remember as the king of pop.
I did indeed, absolutely. I got to know Michael originally when he came to Ireland in June 2006, and I suppose we kept up a relationship until the time he died.
And I remember we chatted before, and I said to you that I stayed in a place down in Kinsale, and he'd actually stayed in this it's like a private house in Kinsale, and then had a studio down there. Yeah. And at the time I mentioned to you, not a lot of people realise that Michael Jackson spent so much time in Ireland. He had a bit of a love affair with Ireland, in fact.
He did, and the kids loved it as well. During the time that Michael spent most of his time in Grouse Lodge in County Westmeath, and that's where he recorded his album, and where will.i.am and himself and myself, I suppose, knocked around together for a period. Yes.
Well, it's really interesting. I was watching The American Voice. I'm a big fan of television in general, and will.i.am, was it The American Voice or actually the UK Voice? And will.i.am actually referenced, because they were trying to name each other, drop names.
He never stops.
And will.i.am said, well, when I was in Ireland with Michael Jackson, and everybody was like, hands up, it's Michael Jackson, the king of pop, you've won. Yes, and whatever. What was he like, Patrick, as a man? Because for many of us, he was a star. He was the man that gave us the wonderful songs that we love. But as a personal man, what was he like?
Well, I suppose the first thing is that he was very intelligent, very humble, and incredibly fun to be around, There was a dark, gloomy side to him when he came to Ireland after the Santa Maria trial, but that really tore the heart out of him. And I think that through it all, he still had his wonderful respect for humanity and for children. During the period he was in Ireland, he wanted me to go into, I suppose, the Children's Hospital with him on a couple of occasions. Now, I'd worked in Crumlin Hospital myself, and looking back on it, I should have done that. I didn't realise, I suppose, when I got to know Michael originally, his big, I suppose, biopic opus sort of songs like some like Earth Song, I would have known, but his early Earth stuff I wouldn't have been particularly into. I'd have been more, I suppose, U2 Pink Floyd type of person. And I didn't realise that Michael actually always visited hospitals, children's hospitals in every city he went to. So when the Murray kids were they were firebombed in Limerick, if you remember, and there were quite a lot of pain, and they sort of had second and first degree burns and third degree burns over quite a large percent of their body. Michael wanted to go in and visit them, but I thought it would blow his cover, if you know what I mean, that as soon as the media would find out, and it put such a twist on it. Now, the media are terrible. The media have been in contact with me on certainly on one occasion, where they wanted to pay me a lot of money just to say that he was using drugs. And at no time I ever seen Michael use drugs.
But you would have been his doctor, because that's how you first met him, as a medical doctor. And then, of course, your relationship went from professional, I suppose, to personal, because you had this deep friendship. So you did begin treating him as a doctor.
I did, absolutely. I suppose it's out there on record. I'm not breaking any confidentiality in saying that Michael had vitiligo, and this book that has come out recently, sort of about him, that is going to be in this week's Sunday Times, is all over the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, and I've had to do a couple of interviews the day regarding it. It was trying to say that he didn't. I mean, Michael did.
Can you just explain the condition, just for any listeners, and like myself, who's not medically minded? Sure. What is the condition?
Okay, it's a condition where your own antibodies, instead of attacking things like bacteria, selectively attack your melanocytes. So it leaves, sort of your body black and white. And Michael was really sort of bichromatic. His whole body was black and white patches, So when he took off his trousers, for instance, his legs were all black and white. And I'm not going against any medical confidentiality, because I'm on record saying that, and I mean, it's on his autopsy. So his face, I suppose, was the most obvious thing, and as a consequence, sort of we had to depigment his face so it would be the one colour. So, rather than sort of making it black, it was easier to make it white. And this is the reason as well why Michael had to wear a mask and an umbrella all the time, because he also suffered from lupus. And of course, sort of being a black person, depigmented, he's at big risk of basal cell carcinoma, and which I'm not breaking any comments and said that he had developed as well. And he also obviously is at risk of his lupus, sort of kicking off again, so he'd have to protect himself against the sun.
It's quite incredible, because for me, just to think that, obviously I know you're the medical director of the Aylesbury Clinic here in Dublin, but isn't it extraordinary how Michael Jackson ended up finding a doctor here in Ireland and getting treated over here? Like, was there another connection, or how did you come to meet? How did that connection start?
I was up at Ryan Turbiddy, believe it or not, doing an interview as well that morning, and when I came down, I had Grace Roranda. Grace was his nanny and looked after all the kids, and she was in the waiting room, and she turned around and she said to me, there's a celebrity I'd like you to meet, to treat. Could he come here late at night, and could you get staff to sign confidentiality agreements? Now, we'd have a couple of stars like that coming in, so I wouldn't pass much remarks on it, and my staff would not either, to be honest. We'd have a couple of stars coming in from the United States. Maybe nobody's famous as Michael, but certainly some female singers that would consider themselves as famous as Michael, maybe, And when he came in, he turned around and he said to me, "Hi, I'm Michael Jackson," as if I didn't know. And he took something out of his pocket and he started reading it. He says, "I cried when I read this," and it was an article that I'd written and I'd won an award for with the Irish Medical Times on the silence of the savannah, which is about HIV in Africa, and I'd worked, sort of with some HIV kids in Africa, and continue working there actually, and that brought us very close together. Now, I didn't know where he'd gotten it from, but when I thought of it afterwards, Grace probably was looking through some things on my desk, in the waiting room.
Yes.
And that was probably one of them, and she'd taken it and brought it home. And I suppose, sort of we bonded in that way.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's very apparent that you both shared your humanitarian ideals, and your love is certainly for the African continent. And I know that you are setting up an incredible charity, and I'd love you to tell the Sunshine listeners about it. And this is you pioneering this at the moment.
Well, I suppose I've been made honorary ambassador of the project. The fans have come together and built a children's orphanage and clinic in Liberia. I have to go down at Christmas time. The Prime Minister or the Vice President of Liberia is going to come to open it. And, the fans, I suppose, have put enough faith in me. And yes, they've collected $45,000 and it's almost finished now. And, this would be something that would preserve Michael's legacy for years to come, because if you remember, even under his deep sedation with propofol, he had said, and you've got that tape, where he wanted to, do this in Africa.
That's
and
right.
Of course, he had a Liberian girl as well, so it's a nice association there. We have a couple of, I suppose, projects run. We have another one running in Haiti, and may I say publicly a great thank you to Dennis O'Brien, who never gets respect in Ireland the way he should, who has just donated $350,000 towards the Miracle Restoration Project in Mirabilis in Haiti.
And what better way to celebrate a man that, to celebrate his legacy and his love of children and humanitarian projects than to continue his work.
Absolutely.
I mean, as I was saying to you just off air, because I've interviewed you on 2 occasions before and we've had incredible chats, I actually think we need to do an hour with yourself to talk about all the various different projects, because I know you're working on a book as well.
Well, actually, yeah, I've written a book, but it's far too long. It's 174,000 words.
You're editing a book.
So a good friend of mine, who is a good friend of yours as well, actually, I'll not say who, and who works on the television with you, is going to take a look at it and try and knock it into some shape over the weekend. We're going to have to bring it from 700 pages down to 350.
Well, Dr. Patrick Treacy, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. If anybody wants to find out more about the work that you're doing, is there a website that you can direct fans to?
Oh, regarding Liberia, it's on michaeljacksonslegacy.org. And I suppose the Haiti one, if you look up the Haitian Leadership Foundation, Pierre Dercillian, Bishop Pierre Dercillian and his wife Gladys have the whole thing there. And of course my Facebook page is all, it's got it plastered all over it.
And will you promise me before you go that we'll encourage you to do an hour with me, and we'll have a full discussion when the book is edited and we have lots more to talk?
Absolutely,
I
no
could
problem,
talk to you
Andrea.
for the whole hour.
No problem, okay.
Dr. Patrick Treacy, a pleasure, the medical director and good friend, of course, of Michael Jackson. We're talking movies after this.